Welcome to the County Manager's Report. I'm Lloyd Higuera. With me is County Manager Larry Werner. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Good to have you here. We're going to talk about the Douglas County Board of Commissioners meeting for May 4th. And at that meeting, commissioners confirmed the appointment of Vicki Moore as the Douglas County Comptroller at an annual salary of $87,380.80.
Yeah.
And that is the minimum salary range for that position.
Yeah, this one created a little bit of controversy, I guess. You might say there's a lot of confusion about this actual position. As county manager, it's my duty to appoint the chief financial officer.
Sure.
And having a comptroller is a discretionary function for a county, and the county has always had the chief financial officer be the comptroller. But that position of comptroller has to be confirmed by the Board of County Commissioners.
Ah.
They don't approve the chief financial officer, but they confirm the appointment of the comptroller.
I see.
And there seemed to be some confusion about that. We'd already predetermined who the comptroller was, and there was some public comment statements on that. And then we said, yeah, we have, because the chief financial officer is my appointment. And that, I don't know what would happen if the board didn't confirm that, but it created kind of an interesting dialogue. But I think there was some confusion exactly what we were doing there. But Vicki is now our chief financial officer and our comptroller.
Okay, and Vicki was in the office previously. I mean, she was working in the financial section.
Right, yeah.
And so you appointed her temporary.
Correct.
And then after a while, after she survived the budget,
Yes.
she needed a reward, and she...
Yeah, I'm not sure it's much of a reward. But yeah,
well, it means she has to be there next year for next year's budget. But.
And she did, and that was one of the reasons. The process was fairly complicated because we were concerned about was just a sure thing, and had we really evaluated it. And actually we did. We appointed a interview committee that consisted of the town manager of the town of Genoa, the comptroller from Lyon County, a member from the district attorney's office, a member from our HR department, and we asked them to review all the applications, not just a select few, and we'd had 20-some applications. I asked them to see if they could interview 6, and they went through and picked what they thought as a group, the 6 were worth moving to the next step. And I asked them to give me at least 2 that I could then interview and see how the fit worked. And they did. They sent me Vicki and another gentleman. And after going through the process, I felt Vicki actually fit what we were looking for at the county. So it was a process. It wasn't kind of a predetermined slam dunk kind of sort of thing that was kind of implied at the board meeting. So I feel pretty good about the process. And it validated Vicki as being the right choice as well.
Right. Okay, very good. Well, welcome aboard, and she came just in time to get fully immersed in the budget.
I don't know whether to congratulate to her or apologize to her. But.
Well, also at that May 4th meeting, commissioners did give direction to staff on the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget for Douglas County, and also the Douglas County Redevelopment Agency funds. What kind of direction they give there?
This was the semi-final step of a fairly long process this year to get into the actual details of the budget with the county commissioners. And what we did is we went through the tentative budget and identified areas where there were funds that hadn't been used or had been budgeted but not expended. We aggregated those into a fairly large pot that we asked them the board to prioritize as far as putting them on, into the capital fund and that sort of thing. So we went through that process. The board got an opportunity to address where they wanted to see priority expenditures go, and we got all that wrapped up, and we got the direction we needed to kind of finalize the budget, finalize the capital plan, finalize the redevelopment area. So we're pretty much completed with the process.
Well, the 15th of May is looming up, so I guess that'll be the final.
That's the final adoption of the budget. Vicki and I were just going over that this morning, trying to figure out how the presentation should go and get that adopted. By state law, the budget has to be adopted on this second Monday of May or whatever it turns out to be, but there's a statutory requirement that you have to do it on that date.
I see.
So that's what's on the 15th.
Okay. And also, commissioners provided staff directions, still more direction on the final changes to the capital improvement plan. That's for Douglas County's fiscal years 2018 to 2022.
That's correct. And part of the previous item we talked about was putting items that they wanted to see in the capital plan and move them from a planned to an actual budgeted situation. They were able to identify a lot of infrastructure, a lot of facility improvements, heating system, boiler system, roofs, things that needed to be repaired that have not had the funding for quite a while. And so we were able to actually get those into the budget, and we'll start this year then of doing a lot of building repairs and actual what other infrastructure requirements we need to do. So that's on its way as well.
All righty. Commissioners also at the meeting approved a new self-funded workers' compensation program, and they agreed to withdraw from the Nevada Public Agency Compensation Trust. We talked about this one before, but was this the final action?
This was the final action, right. We took a look at that, and I think as we discussed before, there appeared to be an opportunity for some significant savings to the county in doing our self-insurance on workers' comp. We took a look at the risk, we did the actuarial studies, we made sure we had the proper funding in place, and with all the elements that we had to take care of out of the savings, we still were able to see a savings of about $300 and some thousand a year by making this change.
Significant, yeah. Commissioners also imposed liquor license sanctions on Lucky Liquor in Gardnerville and Walmart in the Indian Hills area for a second violation of selling alcohol to a minor within a 2-year period. What kind of sanctions are involved there?
The policy has been that if they get a second violation, then what the board requires that they send all of their employees that are involved in the liquor sales to alcohol training, so to how to identify folks, how to look at IDs, to actually reaffirm to them again that this is a serious business, and they certainly don't want to go to the third violation or any other violations at that point. But it's kind of it's a major wake-up call to the organizations to stay on top of it. And I think both of them were pretty concerned that this had happened, and we're doing a lot already internally to try to solve that particular problem. But it's a tough one for them, but it needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, that third violation, they actually close down liquor sales, don't they?
They can, right. There are monetary sanctions, and they can actually close the sale of liquors for a period of time, that sort of thing, yes. Yeah. It gets a little more serious.
Yeah. Commissioners also approved a second reading of an ordinance to prohibit marijuana establishments in Douglas County. This one also we've talked about before, and I guess this is the final action on that.
It was, right. Again, this doesn't... It's not contrary to state law where private use of marijuana is permitted by state law, but it does say that in Douglas County we don't want to have retail sales, we don't want to have growers, that sort of thing, that there appears to be in the surrounding areas enough for everybody, so left it at that.
Now, you brought up an interesting point, the state. Could the state come in and mandate at some point that we have a marijuana establishment here, or has that not even been broached?
I don't think it can. I think really what the law says is that if you have to allow private use, and it limits the number, I believe, of different establishments you can have within the county, but it doesn't say you have to have one at all.
I see.
So the county's taking the position that we're fine. We don't need that here.
So this is a pretty final call then.
Yes, as far as we know, right.
Okay, all right. Commissioners approved an agreement for Douglas County Technology Services Department to provide technology services for the East Fork Fire Protection District for fiscal year 2017-2018 at a cost of $110,938.40. So East Fork has kind of split off from Douglas County. They have their own board and things. So is this all part of that process?
It is. When they were part of the county, as far as the Board of County Commissioners acting as their director, the Board of Directors, they were paying IT a cost allocation. So this just kind of moved it though from being an internal cost allocation to a formal memorandum of understanding and an agreement for services provided. It's set up in a catalog format that they can, if they decide they don't want a particular service, they can elect to opt out on that, and then we'd adjust the price accordingly. But based on our discussions with them and what they need at this time, this appeared to be an appropriate process to go through.
One from column A and one from column B.
Exactly.
Okay, exactly. Very good. Commissioners also at the meeting directed staff to initiate abatement on 2 properties in the Topaz area for being a public nuisance or derelict structures. So what happens to those structures?
What will happen now is that since we've reached this point, and to get here, it means that the actual property owners themselves are not responding or not taking care of the issue, and it's turning into a public nuisance, a legal public nuisance issue. So at this point, what the staff will do is contact a couple of different contractors, get some quotes on actually, in these two cases, demolishing and removing them from the site, and then we'll bring it back to the board to have that cost added to their property tax bill.
I assume nobody lives in these structures now?
No, these are really, they're torn apart. One of them had, it was almost cut in half, and the interior side were coming out into the neighborhood. Yeah. Both of them have been abandoned for years, and it's just sitting there as derelict structures, basically.
Okay. Of course, this will be what, at the county's expense to do that?
It's at the county's expense, but like I say, then it becomes a lien on the property, so that if there's any kind of tax sales or any of that sort of thing goes on, then we recoup the cost, right?
Okay. Well, Commissioners also approved a professional services contract with HRD Engineering for design and engineering services for the Highway 88 culvert expansion near Cottonwood Slough, and that amount was $248,364.
Right, except it's HDR, not HRD, so that's okay.
I'll change it.
But it's yes, this is a continuation of a program. It's actually working through the Carson Water Subconservancy District. They obtained a grant. We're a participant in that. And we'll actually will fund a lot of the project and get reimbursement then from the Carson Water Subconservancy for a lot of our expenditures. I think our ultimate exposure on this one is about $90,000 that we'll ultimately end up with.
And then will this help the flooding in that area?
Yes.
To expand the culvert?
It will, yeah.
Okay. Also, Commissioners rejected all bids for the North Valley Wastewater Treatment Plant Effluent Storage Reservoir Repair Project. So what now?
They'll go back, the staff will go back and look at the design, make sure that that's still appropriately what we need, and if there are any modifications that we see that might lower the cost, we'll take a look at those again. But we'll try to bid it out again. This one came in almost double of the engineer's estimate, and a lot of it has to do with just the amount of work that's going on in the valley, and trying to find qualified contractors that would be willing to do the work and have the time to do it. So it's kind of it's the worst time that we've seen in a long time for trying to get competitive bids because everybody's so busy. Yeah. But we're not going to necessarily take the first bid that comes in this case and kind of check it out a little bit.
So the process starts over again?
Process starts over again, yeah.
Okay. Commissioners approved a contract between Douglas County, and that's Douglas County's China Spring Youth Camp, and Dr. Sherry Skidmore to provide psychological counseling services for juveniles at the camp in the amount not to exceed $171,000.
Right. This is based on Wendy Garrison, the camp director, looking at what her needs are for what she needs to do to provide the proper care for the kids that she has out on at the camp, and psychological and psychiatric evaluation. I guess there's a couple of different elements here that they felt that they could maybe do a little better job on, or help improve the family life, help improve the life when the child leaves the camp. So that comes to the county. What's interesting is that we only pay about 16% of that. It's split up with the other 15 counties within the state, and so everybody pays a share of that. But as kind of the parent agency, I guess we want to call it, we run it through our budget as well, so it kind of shows up here, but it's more of a state facility than it is just a county facility.
So the youth who come to the camp come from all over the state?
They do. The only two areas that don't participate are Washoe County and Clark County.
Yeah, that would really increase the load.
Yes.
Quite a bit, yeah. And they have their own facilities, those two counties.
Correct.
So. Okay, so this kind of takes care of everybody else. And also at the meeting, commissioners upheld a planning commission decision. They decided to deny a special use permit for a bed and breakfast permit in the Indian Hills, Jacks Valley community area. What was the problem there?
There was concern by the neighbors that surrounded the applicant's property. I think a lot of issues related to potential increased traffic, people coming and going, and maybe strangers kind of being in the neighborhood and that sort of thing. So it was kind of more of a community issue. And
Was there quite a bit of public testimony on that?
there was. I think it went on for an hour, so I think there was 22 or 23,
Oh,
25.
So 25 people, yeah, well, that usually gets the commission's
Right.
attention.
And it brought to our attention, too, that somehow or another we need to figure out a process that we can kind of gather that information before we take it forward. So we're looking at that there may be a requirement that on these kinds of issues that there's a neighborhood meeting held by the applicant prior to it ever really coming even before the Planning Commission. Because if we see that there's going to be a huge outcry in the neighborhood, then it's really probably not fair to everybody to go through that lengthy process for something that's going to get denied anyway.
Right.
So we're kind of taking a look at our process and see if we can kind of streamline that a little bit.
Yeah, I've never seen anything passed when they have 25 people come and testify. Usually that pretty much seals the deal.
It pretty much does, yes.
Okay, commissioners also discussed legislative issues. This is something that's been on the agenda all during the legislative session. And are there any bills in there right now that will possibly impact Douglas County?
There are a couple. Most of the ones that we've been monitoring are kind of trying to stay neutral on them, and as they're presented, don't really cause us any real difficulty, but there can be a lot of amendments that occur, so we do pay attention to them. The ones that we're monitoring very closely are the ones that relate to the DCS, or the GIDs within the county, and up at Lake Tahoe, the DCSID issue, where it was formed under a certain statute that's no longer allows any of those districts to be formed under that statute, and trying to fix that one. There were some issues relating to collective bargaining that we're kind of monitoring. That we have a pretty good relationship with our bargaining units, and we're seeing laws introduced that I think are caused by other areas that don't have such a good relationship between labor and management. And if some of these pass, it could mandate things that the county has to do that could be kind of counterproductive to what we're trying to accomplish here. So we're trying to say that if you're going to pass these, then figure out a way that you don't hurt what we've already got developed.
Sure.
So which gets kind of tricky at times.
Okay. And of course, they still got a few more days to go.
Yes, they do.
And just kind of keep a watchful eye. Okay, I think that covers the May 4th meeting of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. Do you have a preview of any of the issues that might be coming up before the commission?
I do, Lloyd. One of them we touched on Monday, May 15th. At 3 o'clock, we'll be meeting to adopt the final budget. And then our regular meeting on May 18th, starting at 1:30 at Lake Tahoe, I think we have 2 items that we'll be discussing up there.
Wow.
So actually, now we're down to 1 item now.
Oh.
So we will have a discussion about the Public Works Department reorganizing with the unfortunate situation that happened with Mr. Oakton. It gave Carl Rushmeyer, the Public Works Director, an opportunity maybe to look and see maybe we can do some reorganization, do some changes while we try to fill positions and that sort of thing. So that will be I think the main content of the meeting, other than the typical consent items.
Sure.
And they're the pretty typical on reporting from the different departments, the requirements for the finance department to report what goes on in the general ledger. We're also presenting, it'll be a quarterly grant report. That's an interesting one. It kind of shows all the grants that the county currently has and what they are for and how much we've drawn down on them. And then another one that we'll do that's kind of unique is that we have to revise our drug and alcohol policy to meet Federal Transportation Administration standards. We periodically get audited by the FTA, and this really relates to the DART system more than anything else, and make sure that our policies are up to date with the federal requirements on transit systems and buses and that sort of thing. Other than that, there is one from the district courts, which is a kind of interesting one. They're doing some modernization and within the courtrooms on more audiovisual type of activities. And they're coming in with some contract amendments and additions to upgrade their audiovisual systems. And I think it's really bringing them well into the 21st century on on how a modern courtroom should look. So
Okay, well, very good. Well, Larry, I want to thank you for all the information you shared here on the County Manager's Report. Larry Werner, our County Manager. I'm Lloyd Higuera for the County Manager's Report, and we'll see you next time.